What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Welcome to our post Hard Knocks reaction show. We've been doing these after every episode of the show over the last month. We've been working very hard, but not anywhere near as hard as our special guests tonight. We do have Meg Murray and Roy White joining us, as they have throughout all of our post-show discussions. But very special guest, round of applause for NFL Films' Shannon Furman, the director of Hard Knocks, who is on the East Coast and is staying up late to join us for our live show. Shannon, congratulations on another season of Hard Knocks in the books.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
That's literally what we've been doing. So, I mean, the floor is yours. What are your, I feel like you've done several seasons of Hard Knocks, several seasons of All or Nothing. You have touched so many NFL Films properties. Do you feel like when you wake up out of surgery, is that what you feel like right now? And you're kind of like the anesthesia is wearing off? That's what I imagine it to be like.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit like that. I mean, I think it feels like a truck has been lifted off my back, kind of. So it's a good feeling, but it's always kind of weird because you even just coming back home. I bought a house right before I left, so I've only lived in this house, this kitchen I'm sitting in right now I think I was here for 3 weeks, and then I left for 7 weeks. So you might hear some crickets and frogs chirping because my air conditioner decided to not work today, so they're coming to fix that tomorrow.
And still wearing a hoodie, bold choice.
It was just on the table. It's late. I'm in my pajamas. But yeah, it's a relief to be done. As much fun as we have, it's also a stressful process. So I'm ready for a little break.
Well, on that front, I'd like to take the first question, if I may, because I'm always fascinated on the production side, and I don't think people really know what goes into a 45 to an hour long episode. So I guess take us through what an average day was like for you during this process. When did you start? When did you end? And how much of a crew did you guys have? You know, was it a couple cameras where you kind of having to piece together people in the right spots? Or do you guys have 30 people that are all trying to capture every moment on the field?
Yeah, so we have a team of people in the field, and then there's another team of people that are back in New Jersey. So with me, I had a crew of 35 people in both Oxnard and Dallas. We kind of did a switch over at the halfway point and switched some of the camera and audio folks out, but the directors and project managers, we all stay on the whole time. The staff back at Films is probably similar in size, around 30 people that are editing and logging and kind of organizing all of the footage that we're sending back home. So our days were long this year. It's always a little bit different depending on how coaches run camps and things like that. Last year, because of COVID and the tier system and things, our days were a little bit shorter. Plus, we had 2 teams last year, so it was a little bit less crazy of a schedule. But this year, our days would go from I found myself waking up most days between 5 and 6. I work out. I'd like to lift weights. I didn't really have a place to lift weights, so I was working out in my hotel room at 5 a.m. and then going over to practice. And we'd be there till, I don't know, probably 7 o'clock at night. We'd usually go 7, 8 o'clock, and then we'd go just eat dinner in our Hard Knocks outfits all the time. We very rarely change into regular clothes. We let the crew gets to leave a little bit before us, but the directors kind of stick around, and we have to plan out the whole next day and just kind of everything that's going on from there. So we have to stay a little bit longer. And then the people at home, they're kind of operating maybe an hour or 2 behind us. We feed the footage back as it's happening. Even halfway through practice, we break cards. That's what we call our media. We break cards. And we feed stuff back so they can start working on it pretty much in real time. And things are assigned by character and position and stuff like that. So different people will work on different position groups. Someone will be assigned Dak, and they just kind of cut little sequences. And then there's 2 people who it's their job to kind of make sense of everything that's being edited and put into a whole story. So I always say the hardest part of Hard Knocks for me is not being able to press the buttons back at home and choose exactly what's going into the show. We work a little differently at Films for the rest of the year. I would, for the most part, like pitch my own pieces, go out and direct them, and then come home and edit them and write them and get them on the air. So this is one of the things that we do where I don't get to kind of have final creative say over what's going in, which can sometimes be a struggle, but that's the Cliff's Notes version of how we kind of get the show on the air. It's a machine though. I mean, this is our 20th season this year, so we revamp it, try to make it as efficient as possible every year, and it's still a learning process every year. We still change some things.
So go ahead, Mick. Go for it.
Sorry. I was just going to say, how do you guys go about choosing who you highlight? Because there's so much between, the game versus, family and all that. So just kind of wondering what your process is.
Yeah, we have, before we even go on location, we do like a character research meeting. So all the directors, we divide up the whole roster, the coaching staff, the front office, and we kind of like stalk their Instagrams, stalk their Twitter, all that stuff, and just come up with this big notepad. And then we all meet and we sit down and we talk about every single person on the roster and front office. And we go into it kind of knowing like who we want to target, but always like people always end up emerging. I mean, I think our star that everybody loved this year was Aiden Diggs, and we knew Trayvon had a son, but we had no idea that he was going to be like that. So the whole point, like we started following Trayvon just because we thought it was interesting that his brother was Stefon Diggs. So to be honest with you, I didn't even know Stefon Diggs had a brother coming into this whole thing when we started researching the team. I probably shouldn't be admitting that out loud, but I didn't. So that was why we wanted to get those two together for a FaceTime. We had talked to Trayvon about how he had a son and when he was going to be around and whatnot. And we didn't know he was even going to be on the shoot that day. And then when we pulled up his house, I think he had just got done picking him up at the airport. He jumped out of the car at the same time as we did. And he walked right up to me and said, I'm Aiden, I'm 4, my birthday's November 1st, and I'm intelligent. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're a star.
Yes.
This is going to be great. So yeah, kind of from there, it was less about the FaceTime with the all-pro brother and became more about his son. So that was like a happy accident that happened there. Sorry, guys, someone is texting me. Let me get rid of that.
Shannon had to use her phone to log in, just so everyone's aware.
My computer is being weird and my microphone is like blocked and I can't figure out why. I'm technologically challenged. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Shannon, we have some questions from people. I still have a lot, to be selfish, but Toddster wants to know if you and Micah celebrated the Penn State win over Wisconsin. Shannon is a proud Penn State alum, just for anyone who is unaware.
Yes, I actually watched the game with Micah.
Little humble brag there.
I've known Micah for a while now because of the
rookie.
Penn State connection, and
he
was rookie with us. So I get to know some of those kids at Penn State early on, which is cool for me. James Franklin's been good to me and lets me be around the program and stuff. So that's fun. So yeah, I watched the Wisconsin game with Micah and his mom.
That's awesome. We have another Micah, not Parsons, but just on the stream here that said highlighting Bones's vasectomy was definitely a think piece. That got a lot of pop, no pun intended. I don't know if that's a pun. I hope not. But, early on. Go ahead, Roy, if you have a question about the vasectomy.
Yes. Well, real quickly, actually, not the vasectomy, but Micah's mom, did she make you food? What did you get to eat of hers?
That day, no, because the game was early. It was like 11 o'clock. But I've had Micah's mom's cooking, and it's excellent.
It looked excellent. Question about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, RJ, to jump on your dingy joke. Get back.
No,
to it.
It wasn't about the joke, but I mean, you've put together, Shannon, Hard Knocks obviously forever, and you've done weird things, right? Like you've covered weird stories, like weird things happen, with different teams or whatever. The vasectomy thing, like what what leads to that making the show, making the final cut? Because there's so many things that don't. Like, is it just somebody's like editing things and they're like, this is hilarious, you know, like we have to get this in. Like, is there a meeting? Are there two people that have a discussion that are like, I think this should get in the show, and somebody says, I agree? I mean, because that was like the first thing we saw. But Bones is a NFL film star. You guys have covered him forever on different things. So what made you decide to highlight this particular portion of his life?
I remember them. I think that happened very early on in camp. And I remember our robo operators, that's what we call our cameras that are in the meeting rooms and stuff, like saying something to me about it. But like, I don't know that they told me it was as funny and as great as it was. So it kind of wasn't even on my radar until I watched the first cut, and I was like, oh my goodness. And yes, I've known Bones and his wife for a while now. So I immediately kind of texted Bones and was like, do you remember talking about your vasectomy in a meeting? And he was like, oh yeah, it was great. It was one of our greatest meetings ever. And I was like, okay. And he's like, is it in the show? And I was like, yes, it is. Like, it's in there. And he's like, yep, no secrets here. Like, that's fine by me. Like, my wife and I are very open about this, and you're good. Like, that's totally fine. But then I felt like I needed to talk to Elizabeth too, because Elizabeth is a good friend of mine. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I know Bones spends a lot of hours at the facility. I don't want him to forget to tell her. So I wanted to make sure that she knew it was going to be in there, and she was fine with it too. So, yeah, I imagine whoever was assigned special teams that week came across his meeting, saw it, knew how amazing it would be. And then once I knew it was in the show, I had some time to talk to them and make sure that they were okay with it. And yeah, that was kind of a no-brainer.
Were there any stories that didn't make the final cut that you saw in person or that you went over that you thought this is going to be phenomenal? I mean, is there stuff that's that great that just didn't make it to the cutting room floor for, whatever reason?
I mean, this year I was talking about this with the other directors the other day, and I don't know if this is, for me, it's a good thing, but I'm very targeted in what I shoot. I don't like to waste guys' time. I know that they're on a strict schedule as it is, and they don't have a lot of time. So this was the first year where there was not one off the field shoot that wasn't used. We kind of went all in on quality over quantity this year, and just wanted to make the shoots that we were doing like as good as they could possibly be. So were there stories that we missed? I'm sure there was a ton of good stories. Like I know like last year, not that you guys care about the Chargers, but Derwin James was someone who we were trying to get in the show every week last year, and it never worked out. And then he tore his ACL for the final show. And it was kind of like we had never introduced this guy, and now this major story was happening. So this year, I'm trying to think, there has to be someone that we thought we would highlight going into it, and then we didn't get to. We got to highlight a lot of the big stars this year, which was our goal.
A ton of them. You guys, covered almost every, I think, angle from that perspective of it.
Yeah, we went into this kind of saying we wanted to, I think Tampa Bay was another Hard Knocks where we did a good job of highlighting their stars at the time. It was like Gerald McCoy, Mike Evans, Jameis, like all those guys, and they all bought in, and we got a lot of airtime. So we wanted it to be similar to that. And I think we did a good job of that, like working in, DeMarcus Lawrence was on PUP, but we still were able to shoot with him and his family and show some of his game highlights. So I think we got like all of those guys in there for the most part. I guess maybe the linebackers, we could have done more with Jalen and Leighton, but Micah just kind of ended up being the star of that group and kind of stole the show there. But other than that, I think we got most of those guys in there that we wanted to.
The players lobby to be on it. Do they lobby? Do they come to you and make a case? Like, hey, you guys should come over to my house. Like, see what my backyard's like. You should come hang out.
You can tell sometimes when they're into it. I think like everyone's very aware, like no one wants to look like that guy who's like trying to be on Hard Knocks, but you can tell when they're into it, and the ones that want nothing to do with you. There's signs.
The offensive lineman typically is where that comes from.
Yeah. How did you guys handle the wrench that was thrown in with the Dak injury? I'm sure you had other things that you were trying to focus on, but then you get something like that. How did that go for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely not something that we saw coming. Yeah, so you just kind of, it really was kind of crazy because I've answered this a couple times now. What you saw on the show, I think the Cowboys were very upfront about what was happening. So because they were so upfront, like we had to be very upfront with it. So, I mean, I had a conversation with Coach McCarthy about that. I was like, I mean, you guys have put everything is kind of out there. Like it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it was something that happened. So you obviously hear that over the wires. We have like around 10 guys mic'd at practice every day, including the head coach. So we knew it was happening, but like it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. But it is the quarterback and it's Dak. So you're kind of like, you just follow your storylines. Like everybody's like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, we don't panic. We just kind of keep going with like what's happening that day. And then you're just in touch with the team. And like, it really was like a minor thing, but when it's your quarterback who's just coming off of another surgery and stuff, you have to be careful with it. So kind of what they were telling everyone is really what was going on. So we just did our best to be able to show that. And I almost there was times where I wanted to be like, stop talking. Stop talking, because we're going to need to like cover this more if you're going to keep talking about it. So, yeah, I don't think it changed anything. It might have changed how we were going to cover Dak throughout the rest of the series because he was more limited in practices and things like that. And like Dak is awesome. So like when he would wear like the microphone he wore for us like the first week, we were like, this is great. And he has an even bigger personality now than he did. I was here in 2017 to do All or Nothing. And obviously he was only in his second year that year. So just kind of seeing his maturation process and his personality grow, like you could definitely see that from 2017 till now, for me at least. So that's the one thing. It would have been cool because he's really fun to watch throwing a football. So we didn't get to do that again until the final week, like for real. So we might have gotten to see some cool Dak highlights. I mean, last year, the Justin Herbert stuff that was in the show was pretty impressive of him throwing. We could have done probably some more stuff with him if he was more active in practice, but I don't think it changed up things too much for us.
I have a lot of logistical questions, Shannon, which based on our conversations we've had before, I don't think is surprising. But so I feel like this was a weird season it was a great season of Hard Knocks. So weird is not a bad thing, but you were thrown a lot of curveballs, like besides the Dak thing and obviously still operating in COVID, but you were thrown there's only 3 preseason games now. And there's the bye week after the preseason and before the regular season. And this team that you're covering is in the Hall of Fame game. And so I know when the schedule first came out, I was kind of surprised that there was going to be an episode this week. And so it was kind of a constant. I didn't know, were you guys going to show players getting cut last week, the day that it happened? You know, like how did I feel like it had to have been new for you. Like, how did you balance that? How did you go into it and say, well, we've always done it this way because the schedule's always been this way? Did you just kind of decide, let's try it this way and see what those results yield?
Yeah, I think this year was a kind of, let's try and see what happens. I think there's going to be some changes next year based off of this year. So it was, I mean, so we were there a week earlier because of the Hall of Fame game. So it was 7 weeks instead of 6 weeks. So we essentially shot for like 30 days in Oxnard for 2 shows. And then I believe we were in Dallas. It was like something like, I was there for 22 days, but I think we were only like shooting like actively like for like 18 days for 3 shows. We might have had like 8 practices for 3 shows in Dallas while we had like 20 some for 2 shows in Oxnard. So none of that is ideal. And then the timing of everything too, like the timing of the games and the move didn't allow you to even like stretch any of Oxnard into show 3 because it was a very definitive date when it ended and like because of how their games fell and stuff. So it was tricky. And I think like some things end up working out for the best. I mean, I think we got a great ending scene with Mr. Jones because we're trying to figure out like the regular season, like they're done. Like it's a training camp show. Coach McCarthy does not want us there once he's preparing for the Buccaneers. So it's like, okay, well, how are we going to end this show? And you use the owner, who's fantastic. And I think we got a pretty cool ending, kind of off of making an adjustment of like, this isn't a normal year. How do we cover this? What do we do? And so we had to kind of think outside of the box. And that was how we kind of came up with the idea to shoot watching the first practice with Mr. Jones instead of being out there. But I think there'll be adjustments made next year.
Speaking of logistics, let's talk about the moment that everybody was talking about. And it didn't have anything to do with an individual player. It was the drone shot. Take us through kind of, because I've heard a couple of things since then that it was done in only 15 tries. That seems pretty phenomenal. And that it was done on what was going to be the last attempt for you guys. How did you coordinate? And one thing just because my audio mind is like, there may not be anybody else that cares about this. Did you have a microphone on the drone, or did you clip in the audio afterwards to make it sound as if the drone was flying near the individual where the audio was coming from, and then away from the individual that the audio was coming from?
So I can't. Okay. So I don't know if that. I assume they got it on their 15th take, so that's why it was done. I don't know if I know there was a tight time window because I think there was a concert in the Star that night. So they had done dress rehearsals kind of the day before, so they knew everything. I wasn't there for it. We were still in Oxnard. So okay. Jason Weber, one of my coworkers, he was the person who directed it. But I don't know if you guys saw, there was a video that went viral back in, I don't know, in the spring at some point in a bowling alley with a drone. So it was basically the same thing. So we saw that video and we were like, how can we do this and make it even cooler? So
how did you see it? Sorry, Shannon. Like just like somebody texted it to y'all, like you just saw it on Twitter, like and just kind of casually chilling. And so you just like you were like, we got to do something like this, like at some point.
Yeah, everybody. It just kind of started. We started like emailing it to each other at work. Like everybody someone sent it out on like a group email, and we're all watching it, and we're like, well, how could we do it? Where would it be appropriate? We threw around, should we do it for the Hard Knocks Open? And then it was like, well, the Open's only like 35 seconds, so that's not long enough. And we were talking about just other shows too, not even just Hard Knocks, just our shows in general. Like, where would it make sense to do something like this? And then we came up with the idea of doing it for the move. It kind of worked out perfectly that they were leaving. So like, let's do it for the move back to Dallas. We hired the same guy who did the drone work in Minnesota. One of our drone operators was there also, but we did use the same company that did the work in Minnesota. And the audio, we had Sydney Johnson, who's a Dallas local, who does a lot of work with us. She was on my crew for the second half. She was one of our sound people. She was the audio technician that was there that day. So she would be much better to answer these questions than me. But it is real. There were microphones placed there. I don't believe it was a microphone on the drone. I think there was microphones placed around the Star. So I think it was like close and it was just recording that audio. So I don't think it was recording it on the drone, but she had microphones placed like near the guy running, near the yoga teacher, in the Star with the reporter, all of that. So it wasn't just like sound effects after the fact. I mean, there were obviously sound effects in there too. But yes, we still did use an audio person to capture real in the moment audio on that shoot. So I like I said, I don't know about the 15th take thing. I'm just assuming that after you get it, you're kind of like, okay, well now we're done. And I don't know how many hours that took. I've heard 3. I've heard a couple different numbers. I didn't confirm any of that, so I'm not entirely sure. But I do know there was an event in the Star that night, so it was a little bit of a time crunch. That's why they took the dress rehearsal the day before very seriously, made sure they had a plan so that they could do this. But I think they wanted to the car that it flew through. The Ford. I did hear that was supposed to be driving, but they couldn't get it. So they made it
have to reset that car like 8 times in a row. I felt bad for the guy jogging in the beginning. I wonder how many laps he had to do, and the yoga folks, I wonder how much time they have for that class. But
I heard the
Really
yoga
cool.
people are, because I thought, I was like, are the yoga people CGI? Are they really there? Like,
I know.
what? And they were like, no, like that's a class. Like that wasn't anybody like that we placed there. Like I guess there's just yoga classes there daily. So that was a class that happened to be there. So it worked out.
Shannon, on the subject of audio, I really feel like you shined a lot of light on different stars. Again, we saw Dak, we saw Micah, we saw McCarthy, we saw Zeke. I mean, I feel like more star power for the team that you're covering than we've seen in recent Hard Knocks season. The Tampa one is definitely a great example. And you got Amari Cooper to wear a mic. You're really great at developing relationships with your subjects that, that we've seen. Again, Shannon does so many wonderful movies for NFL Films. How did that, what's that conversation like? Because Amari is, anyone watching live or listening after the fact, or Megan Roy can tell you, he is the most quiet dude on this team. And so that you got him to give you anything is the shocker of all shockers.
I mean, everyone keeps saying that about him and Trayvon, that
totally. I can't believe you got Trayvon to show you his kid. I mean, that's unbelievable.
I don't know. I mean, I will say that my past experiences with Amari, he has been very quiet, and I know not super into doing NFL Top 100, things like that, but this was not a difficult sell. I don't know if he had seen the show and he really liked it. I know he was just excited to be back on the field with his teammates. It killed him to be on PUP to start the year. Probably as much as it killed me to read tweets every week, why haven't we seen Amari Cooper? Well, he's not practicing, folks. So as soon as he is, we will try and get him out there for you. But so yeah, we knew that we wanted to do that as soon as we got back to Dallas. And we also knew with the limited number of practices, we wanted to make a whole event out of his first practice and wearing a wire that day. So I'm not even sure, which I can't really take credit for convincing him to wear the wire. One of my other directors did that. And, the Cowboys PR staff, Joe Trahan from the Cowboys PR staff, was very helpful with things like that this summer too. So he was not difficult at all. He wore a wire several times, I think, too, in those last 3 weeks that we were there. So he was fun to work with. And I that's one of actually my sneaky favorite scenes from the show, is kind of how they combined his first practice with the thunderstorm that happened that day and kind of showed off his route running there. I think that was definitely one of my favorite moments.
That was an artistic choice, much like Jerry and his McGriddle with the salt.
I had no idea that happened until I watched the first cut of the show. I was like, what in the name of God is happening here?
He's just a content creator at all times. So what is it like to shoot him and get stuff out of him?
He's wonderful. He's super open to just showing us his life and doing things with him. So even the helicopter scene was not something that was planned very far in advance. It was kind of that morning, you're going on the helicopter. I was like, okay, let me figure this out, because no one is prepared to do that and everyone's on their way to the stadium. And then people were like, oh, is that fake? Did you make him turn around and pick up Steven? I'm like, no, we didn't ask the owner of the team to fake leaving his son at the helipad. No, that really happened. So yeah, he's great. And he's a walking soundbite. I would usually go with my questions in hand, and he answers 3 things at one time, and it's always gold. So, I loved working with him and getting to know him better. I didn't get to know him real well on All or Nothing, so it was fun for me to get to know him and Charlotte a little bit better this year. I wish we had seen. She's someone who I wish we had seen more of her in the show. I should have answered that for that question. I wish we could have gotten more of her, because I think she's very interesting and very good at what she does.
Yeah, she has a lot going on.
Did you have any of Jerry's tea, Shannon? Because I know when I've spoken to Chris Weaver, I know he did a football life on Jerry. That there was a big scene in that film about the tea, the sweet tea or unsweet tea that Jerry drinks, and Chris went on this big tirade about it. So I don't know if you had a glass.
I did not get to have any of that. All I saw Jerry eating was fast food this summer.
I was going to say,
so that's you really saw that, because we kind of thought that was fraudulent. This whole I eat Whataburger 5 times a week thing. So you can vouch for this.
Yeah, no, it's not fraudulent.
Just saying, you guys need a master cut of Jerry just eating regular people's food, and I promise you that's a video that will go viral in and of itself.
Well, he said after show 1, he said, the McGriddle scene, obviously, he's like, well, Shannon, maybe next week you can get me doing something I'm supposed to be doing. All right, we'll see what we can do.
So I have a question about tonight's episode. I think you're aware, Shannon, you mentioned Twitter. Mike McCarthy is accused of loving Ben DiNucci a lot. And like, I feel like tonight's episode, we got the most, and I don't mean to imply that there wasn't any of this, in the previous 4 episodes. We got the most like football-y opinion from Mike McCarthy. We got the most like football conviction from him, talking about Ben DiNucci, because he got kind of, I wouldn't say emotional, but he got kind of like, look, I don't want to cut a guy in his second year. And then he even doubled down on it later, talking about, these guys who were rookies during the pandemic season last year, et cetera. And, obviously, like, people have different interpretations of the Hard Knocks vetting process, and, you showing it to teams and them clearing you to do different stuff. I guess my question is, what was Mike McCarthy like to work with in that sense? I mean, was it a lot of no way, hell knows, whatever? Or was it really passive? Was it like, hey, that's cool? Because you obviously aren't going to want to show these, all the secrets, the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl, obviously. So, I mean, what was he like to work with specifically? Because his reputation among football fans is in an interesting place as well right now.
I mean, I wish that you guys got to know Mike McCarthy the way I got to know him this summer. He's one of the best people I've ever met in football. He's just, he doesn't want to be highlighted. He wants his players to be highlighted. He's used to kind of being more behind the scenes in Green Bay, and then you come to Dallas, and obviously it's a different deal between the Packers and the Cowboys. So, I mean, I learned so much about him this summer. He's a great storyteller. He has tons of stories. But, yeah, he prefers that the players be highlighted more so than himself. So, I mean, he did all the things. He wore the wire every day. We were in team meeting, all of that every day. But I would have liked to have met his family, but I get it. I get why. And a lot of times, I'm trying to think of the years that we did have the head coach's family in the show. It's not something we do every year. But I think it would have been nice to see the, like, girl dad side of Mike. But I mean, he really is a great person. If you ever do get to meet him, tell him that you want to learn about Pittsburgh. He loves Pittsburgh. He loves the city where he's from and that whole area. So I think his sisters all went to Penn State. So I had a little bit of an in there with him once he found that out. But yeah, I mean, he does like Ben DiNucci. I don't think that that's a secret. And when you're around him, you understand why. I mean, I guess, like, did Ben play good in the preseason? No, he didn't. And he admitted that himself in the show. But coach doesn't want to give up on him yet. He saw something in him when they drafted him last year. Was he drafted or was he undrafted?
He was a 7th round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just don't think he's ready to give up on that yet. I think he thinks the Eagles game from last year was a little bit unfair with the amount of offensive linemen that were out. Just the whole situation that season just feels like maybe Ben wasn't prepared enough, and it's just, he wants to try to give him a chance, I think, to get past that. So I can understand it because I've heard a lot of the behind the scenes and stuff all summer. I get why fans might not understand it, but it's a practice squad spot. It's, give him another year. Give him a chance.
Well, based on all the, the videos and the clips that you got to go through, and really the insight that you've gained into, like, getting to know these guys on a personal level, is there any insight you can share about how the Cowboys operate that maybe wasn't shown on the program itself? Is there anything that would surprise people about either how decisions are made? I mean, we kind of got Jerry and Steven sitting in the personnel room, kind of eye to eye with Will McClay, having a conversation over players. So I think that was a portion that maybe fans might still be surprised by, that Jerry's, like, actively involved in those conversations. Was there anything else that you saw that maybe didn't make it to the show itself?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Like, as far as, like, the decision making process goes, I don't think there was anything. I mean, I think it was great that there's a lot of teams these days that, like, the Chargers didn't have many staff meetings last year, like, if any, really. Things were done, like, kind of on a one-on-one basis with Anthony Lynn and Tom Telesco. I thought it was kind of cool to be able to have access to some of those staff meetings again in the show this year, especially episode 1 had a bunch, and then seeing Jerry and Steven involved in that process in the final show. I don't know. And not as far as the decisions go. I mean, I wish it kind of stunk. We lost Dan Quinn with the COVID situation. Could have seen more of him if that hadn't happened. But I can't think of anything right off the top of my head about it. I mean, I just know I love coming to Dallas because I like the city. I like the guys. It's a great locker room. I mean, I don't know how, if you're a player and you come there on a visit, if they offer you a contract, I don't know how you're leaving. Well,
let me ask the question in a better way then. Is the Cowboys' decision-making process the best one that you've seen in your experience at Hard Knocks?
If you say no, people will riot, Shannon.
You better not.
Yeah.
I kid. I mean, you got an easy layup if you want to say yes, but you don't have to say yes. Because there are many Cowboys fans that probably disagree.
I don't really know if I'm the best person to ask about that question. Just because I can say that, I like the way the Cowboys organization is run. The decision-making process, I'm not a football guru, so I know as much as I try to learn X's and O's and things like that. And inside, I like working on our shows that are more X and O detailed, so I can learn more about those things. But I think I do know people well and just how to kind of manage people and do things. And I will say, I love the way the Cowboys organization is run. I love that Jerry cares so much about his team. Because there have definitely been Hard Knocks where the owner is more of an absentee owner and you see kind of other things come from that. So I do love the passion around the Cowboys and just that I think he said this a million times. He could be anywhere in the world at this point in his life, but he loves football. He loves this team and he wants everyone around him and under him to feel the same way. So I think that his passion is really cool. And that's what I love about the Cowboys organization.
Shannon, this was something that was really popular in Cowboys Twitter when you guys showed the joint practice between the Cowboys and the Rams. It was sort of pieced together by people that you guys showed those in reverse order or a random order, the scuffles. We do have a question here on the stream as to why that happened. The question comes from Yuma Cactus, who says, I know why, but I want to hear an official explanation. So you're aware, the general assumption is that was more aesthetically pleasing, that was more movie-like, but, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, well, I know there was something out there why didn't they have this fight that I think the Cowboys cameras captured, and it's
the Aaron Donald Connor Williams fight was what everyone wanted to see. Yeah.
Well, so we didn't have Connor Williams mic'd. So we had 10 guys mic'd that day. So yes, there were strict instructions to whenever Aaron Donald is on the field, we be around that, be near it, at least whoever's on the D line that day. So we did have a crew covering the D line. But it's you can't predict when those moments are exactly going to erupt and stuff. So, and then, as far as them not going in chronological order and stuff, they're going to edit things that, with the beat of the music, things like that, the build up. So it was something that happened in that day after the Aaron Donald fight. Of course, we're going to build up to the Aaron Donald fight. That was the moment everybody remembered. That's the moment everybody's waiting for. So even if one of the scuffles happened after that, I think we don't follow a strict chronological order on Hard Knocks. So it's kind of just to make the best montage and go with the music and the storyline.
I have another decision-making question, actually. So Mike McCarthy was all about these mojo moments. I believe it was one of the first episodes, maybe second. But we didn't see it continue throughout. So firstly, did you see him come up with that? And also, did he just not bring it up the rest of the time? Or we had a lot to highlight, so.
Yeah, no, that is his thing. That's his voice on the Time for a Mojo Moment. They recorded that at camp. I'm not sure if it's something he did, if that was a thing he did this year, or if it's something he's always done. I'm not positive. I know they did it all the time in Oxnard. They did it at least once a practice, if not twice a practice in Oxnard. But when we got back to Dallas, I literally think we only had 7 practices, and it didn't happen in Dallas. So I don't know if it's something he's going to continue to do throughout the season as they like prepare for their regular season games. But in Oxnard, it was an everyday thing, sometimes twice a day. But in Dallas, we did not see that again. So I'm not sure there. I thought they could have ran with it. They could play in the stadium on game day. It's time for a mojo moment. Make the fans.
Oh, they have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Players doing their best Austin Powers impressions. There's no question that has to be
that
done.
was kind of dumb luck that day that we had Brent Urban mic'd because he's a character. I mean, someone had tipped me off that he was funny. So I didn't know that there was like much of a story that went there with him, but we did mic him a couple times this summer just to be kind of like the funny guy. And it worked out that it was like that day that they started that. I think it really was that day. And we got those Austin Powers sound bites off of him.
Do you know if Austin Powers is on HBO Max? Because I was wondering that. Like, that has to, like, it has to be at this point, given, Also, that's another technical question. This year you had to deal with HBO Max. That's a whole different wrinkle, I feel like.
I mean, that's not us. That's on HBO.
Still, though, it's crazy. It's a new frontier. I mean, it's wild.
It is, but hopefully it gets more people watching because of it. So, yeah, but that's their problem. That's one thing I don't have to worry about.
Okay, it's very late for Shannon. She has stayed up super late because she's a rock star. So we just have some quick final speed round sort of things. You can keep them short and sweet, Shannon. You are the GOAT for joining us. Again, Shannon Furman. Everything Shannon has worked on is amazing as far as NFL films is concerned. I can vouch for that. And nobody works harder. But so what is, if you had to pick the one thing, like one scene, because I know that there are scenes that don't make it, like the top scene that didn't make it, and it could be like a mundane activity, but what was it that you couldn't fit in that you just had to cut off that you are bummed about?
I seriously don't know. We were really like proud of ourselves that all of our stuff got in the show. I'm trying to think.
It was more chess scenes, wasn't it?
There wasn't. We wanted there to be more. Micah was supposed to win and then play Amari.
I told you.
We were all kind of shocked, if I'm being honest with you, that there was not a Micah Amari chess scene after everything that happened.
We thought you were putting the rookie in his place by showing him losing at everything, right? He's getting burned by a fullback. He's losing at chess to the backup quarterback. We thought there was this like motif of, hey, Rook, you still got a lot to learn in this thing.
Well, he'll kill me if he hears me say this, but I don't really think he would have had a shot at beating Amari. So once he already lost to Ben DiNucci, seeing Micah lose again to Amari.
Shannon Furman says Micah can't possibly beat Amari.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that.
Exclamation.
But Israel was a character that we liked a lot and we wanted to try and get in, and we never were able to make that happen. So he's a guy who I think you guys should look out for. He's got a great personality, funny guy. He's probably one guy who he was like the next guy in had we been able to introduce someone else.
Did they ever have a rookie talent show? Because we've seen that as okay. They never did one because we've seen that as like a big highlight. We were all kind of expecting, as one texter points out, Musto Man 6 mentioned that Boss Man Fat. We have a real rapper on this team. And we didn't see any of that. No, no criticism there because not a lot of people would have known that name outside of, people.
We have him rapping, when he makes it to the Hall of Fame or something someday, we'll definitely can be able to dig some Boss Man Fat rap out of.
Okay, so you have him rapping. You have him rapping.
We do. How did I forget? Yes, we do.
Okay.
So we were stunned because Terrell Basham rapping made the show. So we were like, if there had been odds on a person to be seen rapping on Hard Knocks this season, it would have been, Boss Man Fat is the heavy favorite. And then I don't know who is, that was a real stunner to us. Obviously we saw some weird talents. We saw rapping, we saw comedy. So,
impressions.
It is what it is. Yeah. We also saw, the combination of food. Would you eat, what was it? Was it sweet potato or yams and mac and cheese? Would you eat that in one spoonful, Shannon, yourself?
No.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we all agreed.
It's
I
like
also
Thanksgiving in a bowl. Come on.
no. Isaac Alarcon got a lot of play.
You said his name so nicely.
Hey, I mean, that's what I do. But I mean, he was so infectious, and his mom and his family and everything about him. And this was a weird. Again, I've used the word weird several times, and it was weird in a good way. But because he had the distinction as part of the NFL's International Pathway Program, every Cowboys fan knew that he was safe on the practice squad, which is a different factor than you normally have going into Hard Knocks. Because you're like, if this guy gets cut, like you don't have that kind of safety net to fall on. What was he like to work with? And he posted on his Instagram story he got cake. Can you tell us the story about him getting the cake?
Yeah, we did end up getting. I found out that the cake was from a Dallas bakery. So once we got back to the last week we bought it for him, and we were actually going to have Tyron Smith and Zach Martin give it to him on camera, but by the time we got it, we had already kind of wrapped shooting, so we just left it at his locker instead. So we didn't get to film that, but we wanted to give it to him still. So I did see him post it on Instagram, but he was great. I mean, he was very focused on. He really wanted to make the 53, so he was super focused on that. And like we said earlier, O linemen can be a little bit more difficult to get to do these things. So it was good that we had his family to kind of fall back on and kind of take some of the pressure off of him from being in the show. But it is such an interesting story, so we really wanted to highlight that. And we know he has a huge fan base in Mexico, so. I mean, he was great, and it's kind of cool to see that. I know Coach thinks he's made such a huge jump from last year, and just to see the dude looks like, can you look any more like an offensive lineman? Like he's huge, and athletic though, not just huge. So, well, we'll be rooting for him. I hope he gets a chance to make the actual roster. I guess he can make it this year. They changed the rules, so he can actually get moved to the 53 man at some point, possibly. So yeah, it was fun to cover that. And the director who worked with him, she's Colombian and she's fluent in Spanish. So she did all of his interviews in Spanish. I know that was fun for her to be able to do that. So it was pretty cool.
Tell us more about Aiden Diggs, just because he
Wait,
really. Or no,
I
you
need
go
to
ahead.
know. I need to know the logistics of the Dak scene. I'm sure he was easy to get to do this, but telling him about how Aiden had talked about him and the not Patrick Mahomes stuff. Did you get to break the news that he wasn't sure who was who? Or
no, I mean, that was all Aiden as far as that goes there. I mean, setting up the shoot was just kind of like I said, Dak, we want to make you meet Aiden. We want to get you, because we were hoping he'd meet him after the game that day. And then he didn't get a chance to. I guess they just missed each other. And he obviously didn't know about Aiden yet. He hadn't seen the show at that point yet. So he didn't. And I had kind of told him a little bit about it, but he didn't know in full how great he was. So after he saw the show, I mean, he was all in. And then we worked with PR to figure out where the best place was to do this. So we went to the ice cream shop right across the street at the Star. And they were great. They shut the place down for us. I was with Dak, so I walked over with Dak while Aiden and Trayvon and Stephanie, the mom, were all kind of waiting there. So no one prepped him. He didn't know Dak was coming. It was a surprise, and it was fantastic. And then I ran. He said something about throwing a football, so I legit ran out of the ice cream place, went to the Cowboys Pro Shop, bought a football.
You bought it?
Yeah, I just bought a football in the Pro Shop, and then
nice.
And then gave it just threw it at Aiden sitting there eating his ice cream, and then they went outside and they played football. And then Cowboys PR told me that was the first time they've ever seen the field completely empty. There wasn't one person on it when we ran over there. So that was cool.
No yoga classes.
Yeah.
So I have a weird question about that. Have you you've done so many of these and worked with so many players and so many coaches. Have you is that common for a player's son to love or idolize or be a fan of the team's quarterback or a different player on the team like that? I know Tyrann Mathieu had a lot of fans on the Cardinals. I mean, things like that. that a rarity? How common is that? I mean, just because I think every Cowboys fan watches that and is just kind of like, wow, this is so interesting that, you know, his teammate's son is a big fan of him. His teammate's son wants an autographed jersey. That's just an interesting wrinkle to this.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it before. I think that was a first for us. We were saying that like our cutest kid before that was probably this long shot guy, Austin Hill's daughter in the Rams season. But yeah, I had definitely never seen anything like this. I mean, Aiden's like a 4-year-old that speaks like he's like 15 or 16 years old. I mean, he's fantastic. So
he's intelligent.
Yes, he's intelligent. He's very intelligent. Yeah, he was great, and none of it was staged. I mean, I knew immediately the second he came up to me. I'm like, he's going to be. I mean, we put a mic on him. We don't normally mic kids. Like normally, the sound from a kid comes from the boom mic and stuff. But he was so talkative. I mean, he talks 10 times as much as his father. So I had pictures of him getting mic'd up. So that was also a first for me.
What did CD's candles smell like?
I wasn't on that shoot, Michelle.
Well, what's the word on what CD's candles smell like? Because everyone needs to know.
They're fantastic. I should have asked Michelle. You should have prepped me ahead of time. I did all of like Dak and Zeke's shoots. I let my staff kind of work with all of the other guys. So she did say, I mean, I know Michelle said that the second shoot, like that shoot was not supposed to be about his candles and what things smell like. And she said she walked into his room and was like, oh my goodness, like it smells so good in here. And that's how the whole candle conversation even started.
Yeah, I forgot about it till tonight's episode when you had the callback. That was really nice. Great filmmaking by you. I have one last one, and then if Meg and Roy have one last one, I imagine they do. And then we'll let you get to bed, Shannon. Again, you are the best. What was a moment?
I have the last one, by the way, so okay. I'm claiming last dibs.
What was I would assume I'm such an NFL Films wannabe, as you know, Shannon, but I would assume that when you guys put together the final cut, there's some sort of conversation like this is going to be the moment. Like this is what everyone's going to be talking about. Like the drone video had to have been that, but with the exception of the drone video, what was kind of the thing you were the most right on? Like the most viral, most talked about thing that you knew the moment you shot it, the moment you saw it, whatever, that people were going to be talking about that scene?
I mean, on it, like it was probably Aiden. Like once we shot him at the game that night, like I knew he was super cute at the house, but then once we did the game with him and he's like, stay focused, believe in yourself. Like, I mean, it was like everyone, if you're not obsessed with this kid, you have no heart.
Okay. You know, using the cute kid as the answer, kind of a cheat move, but it is what it is. You know,
it's the truth.
The
I would have thought it was going to be like the Zeke rapping thing. Like
he does this to me all the time.
I mean, I would like to say the Zeke rapping thing because that was like all my idea, but I almost like forget about that because it happened so long ago at this point. But yeah, that will probably go down as one of my favorite scenes I've ever done at Hard Knocks because my face hurt from smiling. Like it just was so ridiculous and awesome. Like I wanted to just jump in there and wrap the gift for. I love to gift wrap, so I was like, "Oh my god, let me just help you because this is so ridiculous right now." But
was the Dak knock planned? Because that was really fortuitous timing. That was perfect. It really seemed like that was planned. If
no, and when he knocked, I don't even know how they got my voice out of it because I kind of was like, I thought it was one of our crew members. So I was like about to like yell at like someone for knocking on the door and interrupting the middle of the scene. And then my camera guy was like, I don't think it's a crew member, Shan. And I was like, oh, then who is it? And yeah, it was Dak.
Meg, do you have a last one for Shannon the Goat Furman?
Just first of all, thanks for Hard Knocks this year. It was amazing. I'm so excited. I'm going to rewatch it like tomorrow. So in its entirety, but just give us a little Zeke preview. How good do you think this guy's going to be this year? And like, do you just love seeing him interact with his teammates? Because that was fun.
I mean, it was awesome for me. I'll say this about Zeke. Like, I didn't get to work with him a ton in 2017. That was the year he was suspended. So we didn't get to do much with him. Ever since that year, every time I see him, he knows my name. He uses my name when he sees me and says hello to me. He's always pleasant to be around. I could listen to his laugh for days. I mean, I had him in my ears at those games where he was mic'd, and he just made me laugh the whole night. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape right now. His teammates love him. I think he's going to have a great year. It just seems like he's in a really good spot in his life right now. So I will definitely be rooting for him. And he's an Ohio State guy. I don't do that easily.
There we go.
Well,
Roy, you were bragging about your question.
Yeah, we'll leave you with the last one, Shannon. The easiest one of the night, I'm sure. So after getting to see the Cowboys up close, they look phenomenal, as you know. How much are they going to beat the Bucs by on Thursday night when they travel to Tampa and take on the world champs?
I'll say they're going to win by a touchdown.
All right, right.
I think, I don't know. I think they definitely have a chance. Their starting lineup is stacked, so there's no reason why they shouldn't be in that game. So I'm excited. The Bucs are like one of my also favorite teams, though, too.
That's fair. They give you a good Hard Knocks, so.
They're my two favorite locker rooms from Hard Knocks, to be honest with you. And there's still a lot of guys on that Bucs team. Just like Mike Evans is one of my favorite people on earth. So, and Levante David. So, the Cowboys I'm going to cheer for the Cowboys instead of the Eagles this year. So,
Woo.
Yeah, that's well said.
I mean, that's just a smart, natural
Shannon,
thing to do. And the Eagles, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, everyone wants Shannon, like a behind the scenes, like an extras. We live in a day and age like NFL Films has a YouTube channel. Like we don't have to let all this stuff be lost to the vault anymore. You know what I mean? Like we need to see Boss Man fat rapping. We need to see the outtakes with Aiden. We need to see
stuff like that on social after the fact. So we'll see if they can do that.
I mean, that's what we're asking for kindly, is if we haven't asked for enough.
Wait, I think I might need to get my charger. My phone's dying.
No, that's a good way to end it. That's symbolic.
So nice to stay with us as long as you have.
Shannon Furman, thank you so much. Congratulations on another season of Hard Knocks. You guys killed it. NFL Films, awesome. The absolute best in the business. You did a phenomenal job. Can't wait to see the feature you guys put together on the 2021 Dallas Cowboys that win the Super Bowl. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Shannon. Enjoy football season.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Shannon.
Bye.